Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another spoilers video for Legends of Runeterra. So today we have the invoke keyword, and the invoke keyword states that you may pick a celestial card from among three to create in hand. Now, just for reference, we don't actually know any of the celestial cards yet. I don't know when they're going to be spoiling that, whether with the champion or on its own, or in its own separate thing. But I'm actually super excited to see what kind of cards we can get from the invoke keyword. It sounds super great. Like, being able to draw a card from outside your deck from three options seems pretty powerful. It's a very situational style card, very flexible, which is something that should be valued very highly in card games. So let's take a look at the cards that have this keyword so far. The first card we have is a Spacey Sketcher, a 1-mana 1/1 that says play, discard a card to invoke a celestial card that costs 3 or less. So this reminds me a lot of Zonite Urchin, where you can discard the card and then get to draw a new one, except this card allows you to invoke a card that costs 3 or less. The 3 or less function is kind of limiting, but you still get to pick from 3 different options, and you can play them in relatively a short time period because of their cost, which is 3 or less, right? Now, I don't know if they're going to be spells or if they're going to be creatures or, whatever they're going to be. We don't know that yet, but I'm assuming they're going to be some sort of cheap spell that can do something like you pick a celestial card that's like draw a card, or it's like a 2/2 that says deal 2 damage or something like that. Something similar to what we've seen in Hearthstone before with these similar effects. Sort of like lackeys in Hearthstone if you ever played. So this card's going to be like a Zonite Urchin where you're trying to discard a card, right? So it could be used in P&Z decks. I think that for the most part it's just going to be used as a good 1/1 that gives you some flexibility. I'm not sure it's going to be played though, because discarding a card to draw a card is just kind of bad. It's worse than something else like Omen Hawk. I don't know. There's a lot of good options, a lot of better options than this card. But I definitely think in an Evoke deck, this actually hits a lot of spots, especially with the card like Mountain Scryer. The discarding a card is sort of like, you're never going to be able to get that off unless you're playing P&Z. And so far, we have not seen a lot of good ways to combine this with P&Z. But, invoking a card is that we don't know how powerful it's going to be because we don't know what the invoke cards are, but they could be pretty powerful. So the next card we have is Lunari Priestess, a 3-mana 2/1 Nightfall Invoke. So this is another Nightfall card. If you want to look at it, it's a 1-mana 2/1 that for 2 extra mana you get the Invoke, which is similar to the other card we've seen, Behold the Infinite, which is just a 2-mana burst Invoke. So if we're comparing all these cards with that card, you're basically paying 2 extra mana attached to the creature to invoke, and of course on the Lunari Priestess, you're actually having to invoke Nightfall to sort of do that, which is kind of weak. Like, when you think about the card itself, it's a 1-mana 2/1, and it's then 2 mana invoke with Nightfall. So it's like a worse Behold the Infinite, just on a creature, right? And I'm saying the card is bad, but being able to draw a card off a 3-mana 2/1 is not the worst. Reminds me of Avarosan Sentry, which is a 2-mana 2/1 that says when it dies, draw 1. So it doesn't have, first of all, it doesn't have the immediate impact of drawing a card, and the invoke keyword is actually really more powerful than just drawing a card. You get to pick from 3 options, and again, Mountain Scryer can help with that. Now, I might as well talk about Mountain Scryer. I've mentioned him twice now. He's a 4-mana 2/3. Your celestial cards cost 1 less, and Allegiance Invoke. So an Allegiance card, pretty strong. Reminds me a lot of Black Market Merchant, where it can make cards cost 1 less. With the Celestial cards, I'm going to assume that they're pretty high impact. Even the sort of less expensive ones. Because you're having to pay 3 mana for a 2/1 that says Invoke, if you've played another spell this turn, that's the Lunari Priestess, that is a high toll just to draw a card. Like, you're never going to go out of your way to draw a card like that, unless you have a reason to do so. And hopefully the Invoke cards are very good. Mountain Scryer just makes them a whole lot better. But like, if you're looking for card draw, just play like Glimpse Beyond or something that just says draw 2. This is 3 mana for a Glimpse Beyond that only draws 1 and doesn't have the fast speed, costs 1 more mana for the 2/1 body. That's just a... And you have to cast another spell for the Nightfall. You have to be able to trigger Nightfall. So in a lot of ways, it's a high cost for just a lower value Glimpse. But if you have a card like Mountain Scryer in your deck, or if the Invoke cards are actually pretty good, the Celestial cards, if they actually have a high power level, then I can actually see this card being pretty good. It is more slower. It gives you a chump blocker, maybe a trade possibly. And drawing you that card that actually has high value, if that's what the Celestial cards look like, actually has a pretty good chance of being competitive viable. But if the Celestial cards, especially ones that cost 3 or less, the ones that Space Sea Sketcher makes, they're just, that card's never going to be viable if they're just like 1 mana draw 1 or something like that. Now 1 mana draw 1 might actually not be too bad, but if it's a weak effect like forget what that card's called, the 1 mana deal 1 damage. If it's like that card, this is just never gonna work. A 3 mana 2/1 that says Nightfall deal 1. No, it's a 4 mana 2/1 then that says deal 1 damage. Wow, that's just really bad. So it's hard to evaluate these cards, is basically what I'm saying, without knowing what the Celestial cards are. So all we can assume is that we're going to be able to draw a card from a good selection of cards that are at least half decent, which makes Lunari Priestess at least a okay card for Nightfall, but a pretty good card with Mountain Scryer, which is like a black market merchant that's overpriced, but has a lot more triggers. You know, all these cards can trigger it, while only Pilfered Goods can really trigger black market merchant, and it has the synergy of taking a Celestial card, again, which would probably be better than the cards in your opponent's deck if we're assuming the best case scenario. So, I think this card's going to be better than Black Market Merchant, but being better means it also is a lot more clunky. Being 4 mana for the better card ability, being able to make your Celestial cards 1 less and then get the Invoke triggers, it's better than Black Market Merchant, like I said, but it has to be 4 mana to compensate for that, and therefore it's just more expensive, more clunky than Black Market Merchant is. Alright, so next we have Moon Dreamer, a 5 mana 3/5 play Invoke. So it's like we've seen a lot of 4 mana 3/5s that have the possibility to have, that like Leona has a very great ability. Troll Ravager has regen, and so this card is 1 extra mana to get the Invoke. So the fact that it's 1 extra mana on top of having a regular effect like they do, I mean, obviously Invoke's probably better than regen, and probably not better than Leona because she's a champion, but still probably better overall in the late game. This card is better in the late game than those cards. It means that 1 extra mana is gonna feel bad, but it's gonna have equal impact to those cards in a lot of ways. I do wish it was 4 mana. But the fact that this is 5 mana gives me hope that the Invoke cards are actually going to be super strong. Because if you're having to pay 1 extra mana for, if you're paying 4 mana for the 3/5 body, which is bad anyway, most 3/5s have another good effect on top of that. If you're paying 1 extra mana for the Invoke effect, and for just a vanilla 3/5, then it's got to be at least decent, right? So, yeah, this card is going to be a staple in the Invoke deck. With Mountain Scryer, it's going to have a lot of power, being able to get a 1 less cost card. Now, the thing about Mountain Scryer you have to notice is that he doesn't say the cards become 1 less cost, like Black Market Merchant. If Black Market Merchant is removed, the cards still cost less. Mountain Scryer has to be in play for the cards to cost 1 less, but you can also play Space Sea Sketcher and say, I'm not going to play this card until I have a Mountain Scryer, which then it costs less. So you can save it for Mountain Scryer, but if Mountain Scryer dies, the cards no longer cost 1 less. So while you can wait until you have Mountain Scryer, you can't do it after. So it's sort of reversed the Black Market Merchant in that way. Where with Black Market Merchant, you wait until you have him in play, then you can play him after he's dead. Mountain Scryer is the opposite. You wait until he's in play. Black Market Merchant, you can play him after he's gone. With Mountain Scryer, you can't do that. Alright, so the next card we have is Solari Priestess, a 3 mana 1/2 that says Daybreak invoke a celestial card that costs 4 or 5 or 6. So it just has to be your 3-drop for that turn. It gets you a 4, 5, or 6 one with Mountain Scryer. It can cost 1 less, meaning you can cast a 5, or you cast Mountain Scryer the next turn. Hopefully he lives, or you have spell mana saved up. I'm not really sure what the celestial cards are going to look like, whether they're going to be spells or units. You could just save 3 spell mana, right? If you don't play Spacey Sketcher and you just save 3 spell mana, that means that when you play Mountain Scryer turn 4, you can actually cast the 4-cost celestial card that Solari Priestess made for 3 that same turn, or you can wait until next turn to cast the 6-cost one or the 5-cost one. So it's kind of weird. I don't know what the celestial cards are going to look like, as in whether they're going to be spells or creatures or whatnot, and how good Mountain Scryer is going to be with his 3 health stat line. You kind of either have to protect him and then cast the celestial cards next turn when you have a ton of mana, or you just have to hope that he lives, or play him in a turn where you have a ton of celestial cards and kind of go off. And of course, the last card we have is Behold the Infinite, just 2 mana burst, invoke. I don't know, Behold the Infinite's probably going to be playable in the deck if you're playing Mountain Scryer. It also gives you a burst speed way to just look for an answer from 3 different cards, which might not be fast speed, but if they are, then you can Behold the Infinite, look for an answer, and hopefully get that answer, which is pretty great. Especially if you're making it cost 1 less with Mountain Scryer. Overall, it's hard to evaluate. I think Lunari Priestess is going to have a hard time because she doesn't have an easy way to activate Nightfall. In the Invoke strategy, you can force it a couple ways with some cards from the Nightfall strategy, and then the rest of the deck looks pretty sweet with Mountain Scryer, being able to cast multiple Invoke cards for reduced cost, as long as the Celestial cards are pretty decent, and actually if they're really strong, like very impactful, or at least decent at some level, then this deck could actually be really good and probably I don't know if it's going to replace Nab. I mean, like, the thing about Nab is that you have Black Market Merchant, which is 2 mana, Pilfered Goods, which is 3 mana, and you have Warning Shot, which is 0 mana, which it generates so much value. With this, it's a lot slower, a lot less impactful, but if the Celestial cards are actually OP, and it's better than what Pilfered Goods could get from your opponent's deck, because it's always going to hit, and the things you're hitting are always going to be good, then this card, these cards, could actually be very impactful, but we have to wait until we see the Celestial cards, and possibly the new champion, which might have to do with this, which actually could improve this strategy quite a bit. But it's too early to say what these cards are going to look like, but I think it's very possible we have a very good Mountain Scryer deck where you're just trying to pump out a ton of Celestial cards. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I cannot wait to see what the rest of these cards are going to look like. Invoke seems like a pretty great strategy, and is at least going to be played in, and Targon is going to have a lot more flexibility now with these Invoke cards, maybe combined with a lot of more regions now because of the ability to draw cards. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.